There we go. Good evening, everyone. Gavin, Seim here. I thought to myself, let's have a little talk. I got a small and measured portion of Chilean Cabernet. And I thought, let's talk a little bit about Virginia. Hello, Texas. I'm sorry for your loss of freedom. And hello, everyone in there, everybody popping there. I know it's Friday night. A lot of you are probably out doing things. Great one, Marcos, Tim, Truth, TT, I like that. All right, Ace, good to see you. Buenas noche. Hola, Fitzcam. Hola, mi compadres en Mexico. Buenas noche y viva la libertad, no? So, Portland, Larry, Russell, all you guys. Shout out to our activists in Portland, down there on the street right now, fighting for Kylie. Follow Kelly Stewart and some of my other friends out there, and I hope some of you that are down there in Portland are going down there. I'll mention that a little bit more. Kylie Dixon, search for that story, because they kidnapped this teen girl from her mother to force cancer treatments and surgery on her, and won't even say where she went, and forced her to have surgeries, all in the name of protecting the people. And after kidnapping her and going through this craziness, and the doctors and the hospital who have a business model of stealing people's children, calling child services, DHS, whatever you want to call it, and having their children kidnapped so they can do procedures on them and study them, they have the audacity to arrest the mother for kidnapping her daughter and take them away. The USA is a madhouse. These are things you should be following, looking into. Follow my profile, Gavin Seim on Facebook, Kelly Stewart, John Lamb, some of my activist friends that are still inside the wall. And yes, I got a new haircut. Thank you. I'm not entirely new Red Wing, but I have a new haircut. A little bit of Mexican styling there, no? But I thought we should have a measured discussion, calm, collected, not angry discussion about Virginia. Last weekend, was it? This gun protest in Virginia? Wow. A lot of people showed up for that, didn't they? That was something when you get that many people together, standing up for freedom, exercising the First Amendment, to protect the Second Amendment, to protect the Fourth Amendment, to protect the Sixth Amendment. I just want you to think about that. Exercising the First Amendment, speech, to protect the Second Amendment, the right to defense, used to protect the Fourth Amendment, the right to be free from search and seizure, to protect the Sixth and Fifth and a little of the Seventh, the right, fundamental and God-given, to due process. Congratulations, Virginia, for not giving in, for standing your ground, for refusing one and all, unilaterally, and sending a message home to the politicians of your state that you will not comply, that you will resist, that you will not tolerate a violation of your First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and others. Congratulations. One moment, please. Excuse me, what? Oh, wait. Say again? I'm sorry, they complied? What? They complied with everything? No, but they at least defied the gun regulations. No? But they didn't let them, they didn't comply with the ban on guns at the protest site. Wait, are you sure? They had a gun protest without guns at the Capitol? Because there was a checkpoint where they searched them all. So wait, they all submitted to searches? And they let the police search them without probable cause to ensure they didn't have guns in order to enter the protest. But I thought I saw photos of guns and stuff. John, come on, you got to give it to me straight here. No. Oh. So they were just complying. Like the guns were not any violation. If they wanted to have guns, they had to stay outside the protest site and just parade around like cool shots on the street. Oh, well, that's going to make all this a little awkward. I wish you'd maybe called me about that first, Right? Yeah, next time, let's do that. Before we start the video, start singing the praises and stuff. I mean, okay, so there was no rebellion. Nobody resisted. They didn't like storm the gates or tear down the barrier of the First Amendment area that was a gun-free zone, so they had a gun protest in a gun-free zone. Okay, you sure? Just like, because people are going to validate me on this. All right, bro, I'll spread the word. Okay, man. I need to drink a little bit. Just I don't want to get carried away or anything. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have to refresh the story. Maybe we should edit out that first part a little bit because, well, it turns out we were a little mistaken on Virginia. Hello, Virginia. Turns out Virginia complied utterly and entirely. And I've seen some comments. I've been talking to this about people. It's a little hard to believe. And they're like, who are you to say, Gavin? Who are you? You didn't do nothing. You didn't show up. You have no qualifications. You don't know what it means to keep the peace. You don't know what it means to stay calm. You don't know what it means when they make the laws and the rules and they tell you have to have the permits and you have to obey or else. You don't understand that, Gavin. Except there's a problem. I do. Because the whole I will not comply thing in Virginia. And I don't want to, how do I say this and not toot my own horn? I started the I will not comply rallies in 2014. A lot of you on this channel probably remember that. And we had a rally. Now, I'm not saying that they were trying to copy me. I hope they're not saying that because they definitely didn't. They were just like pushing that I will not comply message. And the original I will not comply rally was me. And not just me, the Bosworths, the all these other people, a lot of patriots and people. This was before the Red King, of course. This is before everybody said, oh, gun control's okay because Trump's doing it now. And it's all part of the 4D chess. So this was before that. And so people have been questioning some of this on these comments. But now that I've validated that, it's kind of amazing to think about. You see, at the actual I will not comply rally in 2014, let me tell you a little history story, because I'm hearing a lot of people saying, well, we couldn't do the Virginia rally that way. We had to go along. What did you want us to do? Run the fence, the barrier, the search area with 1,000 armed men and then march onto the Capitol grounds without permission? I mean, yeah, that would have been good. That's exactly what you should have done. Because when you have 3,000 people marching, they don't murder you all. Because even in the USA, the government doesn't have that much power. Like, you have more power than the police at that point. That's the point of like a resistance. That's the point of saying I will not comply, is to rally the troops. Now, I remember it was I-594 in Washington in like October, election day, 2014. This is shortly after I had finished and lost running for Congress because I didn't have millions of dollars, but we made a good message. But I was continuing, right? I was like, okay, I got to keep standing up. Just because I'm not running for Congress doesn't mean I don't represent, because I was representing before and I'm going to represent after. So let me tell you a little history lesson that you may not be aware of. It was the night of I-594 passing. Now, I-594 was a draconian gun law restricting our rights, our Second Amendment, right? Not so different from what just happened in Virginia. And what this law did is it made it a felony to even give a gun to a friend. And this law passed and it went into effect on XYZ day. And I looked up that day. And then here's what happened is that very night, I was sitting in a room not so unlike this one, but I was still inside the wall. I was sitting there and I was thinking, all these numbnuts, patriot gun organizations like the NRA, they're just going to go along and be like, oh, join our club and we'll file a lawsuit. And of course, nothing will happen because compromise is what it's all about. You don't file a lawsuit and petition your oppressors to stop oppressing you. Like, that's generally not going to work in most cases. So I was like, well, if I don't take the lead on this, right? Remember, like the votes were literally still rolling in, and I looked and I'm like, it's going to pass. And so that night I made a logo, I designed a graphic, I made a brand, and I made an event, and it was called I Will Not Comply. And if you look on Facebook somewhere in the ancient long past events, you'll still find this event. It has like, I don't know, 30,000 interested people and 10,000 marked as attending. And so what we did is I'm like, I'm just going to do this. I won't comply. I'm going to stand up to it. And I made a video and I said, I won't comply. I simply won't do it. I'm going to violate this. I'm going to do it publicly. And who's with me? And this was 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'm working on this and I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning. And I'm like, hey, I wonder how that little event I made last night is going. I mean, these things don't usually get a lot of attention. And I walked out to my computer and I opened it. And I was like, wow, there's already 1,000 people coming and it's been like 6 hours. Because that's probably all the sleep I got that night. I tried to get 8 in Mexico. So here's this event. Now, bear in mind, my activist friends that I was doing stuff with at the time, like Anthony and Maria Bosworth and people like that, I hadn't told anybody, right? I just said, we're doing this. And then I called them. I'm like, hey, I'm doing this. Want to do it with me? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we started organizing, and pretty soon it was on national news. And pretty soon, like 10,000 people were marked as attending. And within days, I was on a conference call with all the regional leaders of these gun rights organizations. Gun rights, meaning gun compromise, most of them. Politicians, including the leaders of the NRA in the region. And if you've ever been like a young-ish person, and you are a go-getter. Now, I deal with this a lot. I'm starting to get older now. I just turned 35. Woo! But always being the young person, even in my photography trade, I was always like pushing, no, we got to do this, guys, make it happen. And you know how the old guard is like, son, we really appreciate you being here. We appreciate your passion, son. You're going to go places. And we just want to be there for you. We want to help you. We want to be part of this because we know that you know that we work together in this. Now, the translation when someone does this to you, okay, I just want to translate. Thanks, JC. When they do this to you, whether you're in an organization or club or politics. Now, remember, I just run for Congress. I'd seen plenty of politics. When they do this, the translation is, dude, we know that you're gung-ho and we like your energy because we have none, because we're crapping out, but we still want to stay in control. So what we want you to do is work for us, and we'll kind of throw you a few brownie points and give you a nod now and then, but you'll do the work and then we'll take the credit. Most of the time, that's what that means. It's definitely what it means when you're talking to NRA officials. And we're going around and they're like, no, Gavin, we just want to like help you out. We want to make sure that this is real peaceful, that we set a great example, that we really look good in the media. We want to make sure that we got all the right permits. And we're going around and I'm like, whoa, permits? And they're like, well, yeah, didn't the state contact you about needing a permit? And I'm like, yeah, but I told them we won't be getting permits. I told them we'll be bringing thousands of people armed to the Capitol. We're not asking their permission and we'll be there, period. And then I screenshotted that and I shared that on my event page, which now has 10,000 people following it and the nation is talking about. And I said, here's what they tried to do. They tried to tell me I had to get a permit for our rally. I said, not really a protest, more of a defiance, because we're actually going to be violating a felony law here. So it's not a protest. I just want everyone to know we're coming to violate and nullify this law. See, this is how you set up a real rally. As my friend Stephen Ruth would say, shout out Stephen, It just takes a pair of balls. You just got to take a pair of balls and a paint stick, or in this case, a pair of balls and a Facebook event. All right? Stephen Ruth's the guy who cut the wires on the red light cameras in New York. You may remember that guy. I just talked to him last week. So here's the thing. All these representatives on the line are like, well, Gavin, now we just want to work with the state, the police, the state patrol. These are our friends. I'm like, whoa, they're not our friends. They're the ones pulling all this crap and stealing my rights. And the reason we've lost our gun rights, and this is what I told them, and kind of where I think we stepped off the train together. I'm not always the most delicate. I understand that. Sometimes maybe I could do better, but sometimes is not a time to be delicate. And personally, I still think this wasn't a time to be delicate. And I said, you guys need to understand something. I'm having to do this, put my neck on the line and stand out. And we don't have not only gun rights, but we don't have rights anymore, more or less, because you guys failed. You've been compromising with my rights for decades. And now we're standing here, you're failing, your lawsuits are failing, and they're not gonna work. They didn't, FYI. History lesson there. Well, they didn't like that, and I'm like, look, here's how it's gonna work. The reason you're not in charge of this event is because you won't actually resist. So I am going to keep going with the people that are helping me out because we're doing okay, but you guys are totally welcome to be there. You can set up your booths. You can take memberships. Like, we want you to be a part of it. I know we kind of are not necessarily agreeing here, but I'm not looking to have a fight with you. I want us to all be together. And that was about the end of the call. Now, as it turns out, just in case you think that the gun organization that you're a member of is really badass, when we fast forwarded to December 13th, 2014, and you can Google this, look at the news stories, the videos, all this thing. When we fast forward to that, and we had the largest felony civil disobedience rally in U.S. history that I'm aware of. Certainly larger than what they just had in Virginia, because while they have more people, no one disobeyed. And that's the problem, Virginia. You didn't resist. The only message you sent to the crooked politicians running Virginia, to the crooked senators and congressmen in Washington, to the crooked Donald Trump, who's been promoting red flag and gun restrictions day in and day out, almost since the day he took office. The only message that you sent to them is, dear government, we are Virginia. We are the people of the United States of America. We are the patriots, the men, the women, and the children. Dear Virginia legislature, Congress, Mr. President, in the United States of America. We are the patriots, toting our guns and our body armor and wearing real cool camo that we bought at Cabela's. And we're here to tell you that we will comply utterly. We will scream and chant, and we will say, I will not comply. We will cry from the rooftops, like so many of our founding fathers, saying that we will not take it anymore, and that you may take our red blood, and you may run that red blood in the street. Children of the South, children of the North, black, white, brothers and sisters, we will not comply. And do what you may, we will have our rights, except, not really. I mean, actually, we'll comply. We're just trying to make it look good over there so we can get the memberships going and feel good. Just can you let us have the camo? It's kind of cool, all right? See, the message that we, Virginia, send to the world, to the United States of America, it's not like the message of Hong Kong, of resistance. It's not like the message of the people of Chile, where we will not tolerate the terrorism of police anymore. It's not like the message of the people of Mexico, where we're sick and tired of you robbing us on street corners and extorting us and taking bribes. It's nothing like that. The message really, government, police, and blue ISIS, from we, the people of Virginia, is that we will do exactly, totally, entirely, and whatever the bleep you tell us, even if it means groping our pants and checking our size to make sure
That size isn't too big and containing a gun to protect our Second Amendment rights. And we will enter that protest gun-free, allowing ourselves to be searched, patted, groped, touched, and molested for freedom. We are Virginia. Proud. See, that's what actually happened in Virginia. And people say to me, were you there? Did you see? Guys, the first real I Will Not Comply rally in our lifetimes, I organized it. I know what it means to actually not comply. I know what it means to not make excuses, because believe me, when they called me, now they weren't even trying to take our guns or take it that far. They just wanted me to sign papers. They wanted me to get a permit. They said, Gavin, you can't have that many people at a rally armed like this. You have to work with us. You have to get a permit. And I said, you don't understand. And this is exactly how I worded it. And you can go back and you can see that page. And I would share the screenshots from the state capitol. And they said, you have to do this or you can't have the rally. And I said, no, I'm sorry. I respect that you have that feeling, but it's irrelevant. And that's what you need to understand is we will be there and we will be armed. And the reason this rally was national news and people came from all over the nation to participate was that it had balls. I know that's a little crass, but we actually were doing something. Now, the rally in Virginia was well promoted. And so they managed to get a lot of people there to show off their cool guns. But none of those people actually got in to go to the protest area. See, they say, well, no, it doesn't matter. It got us into the media. It got the conversation going. You don't understand. It was about uniting and coming together. Guys, uniting and coming together in absolute submission and compliance to your masters that you claim you will resist while showing up. And while you have the manpower to peacefully do it, resisting not at all is not a gun rights rally. Virginia did not have a gun rights protest in Capitol Square in Virginia. Virginia had a compliance rally. And the message sent, unlike the real I Will Not Comply rallies of 2014, the first one that I set up and some subsequent ones as well, where we had a real message. And en masse, by the thousands, we defied that new felony law. We made it nullified so that afterward, they just said, well, we're really not going to enforce it. Now, of course, in the years since, it's gotten gradually worse as the gun stores and the complicit people who, for a buck, will get a permit and ask permission and submit to anything. And yet, at that time, we nullified it. We proved the concept of nullification that most people had heard about but never even seen. You have to understand, we did go in. We didn't get a permit. They even tried to give a permit to another gun rights organization that said they would go along with it. And they said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to talk to these people now because they have the permit. And I said, and all this is recorded and tracked. I said, I'm sorry, you don't understand. This is not their rally. We, those of us who will defy this, are coming. There will be thousands of us. We will be armed, and you will get out of our way. Period. Now, when we had that rally, thousands showed up. We burned concealed weapons permits on stage and then concealed our weapons. I did anyhow, not everyone. But thousands of us did violate that new felony gun restriction. We made a point. There was people from all over the nation. Actual disobedience, not compliance. We didn't try to pick fights. We let the police stand on the sidelines and watch. And when that cleared, I remember that morning, because you have to understand that I was the one that this was on. If it went bad, it was on Gavin. And I remember that morning. I remember how little I slept that night. I remember appealing to heaven because I was genuinely afraid with the level of ferocity. Even though we constantly downplay violence, we said, no, look, we're the peacemakers. As long as they leave us alone, there's not a problem. We're there to exercise and demand our rights, and they just have to leave us alone. And I remember how scary it was because I thought, if this goes bad, the next revolution could be started today, for real, on me. Thanks, Truth and Mercy. All right? And that was a scary thing for a 30-year-old. And there was a lot of organization. We had food carts and vendors, and people had donated money. We had sound systems to cover this huge field. We had porta potties delivered, like a dozen of them. And at least 3,000 people showed up to that event, probably more throughout the day. But I remember being there at like 6 in the morning. And I remember rolling in, and they were going to try to make it hard. The state patrol was there, and they said, well, no, you can't actually enter with your vehicles in here to set up because there's no vehicles allowed. So if you want to do anything, you can just walk in and do it. We said, no, we're here. You know we're coming. And there was a little pushing and a little back and forth. And there was only a few of us there initially setting up. And we got in and we parked the trailers anyway inside the cones, and we started setting up, and the people who graciously came to help us with sound and volunteered their time. And I remember we set up, and I was staring, and it was foggy. It was December in Washington, and it was foggy, and me and the others were just standing there on this hillock, and we were looking out over this huge empty field in Olympia, Washington, ready to commit felonies, because that's what we promised we would do. And I thought, what's going to happen? I was waiting for the police to move. I was waiting for people to show up, to come. And then out of the fog, they started coming like wraiths, and they just kind of poured out of the fog. And the people came, and their guns were on their shoulders, and their babies were on their shoulders, and their wives were next to them, and their families. And the buses, they started rolling in, and the people came in. And it was a really beautiful sight. And I wish, honestly, that there was more cameras recording that moment, because I was so consumed with just making sure everything went okay that I wasn't a photographer that day. I don't actually have a lot of images from that day. A lot were made, the news were there, the videos were there, all that, but personally, I don't actually have a lot. If you still have some, please send them to me, because there was a lot of media and photographers there. And so that's what happened. And we went throughout that day, and we had speakers, and at the end of the day, I rallied the people, and I burned my concealed weapons permit, and people come out of the crowd, and they did also, and we said, I won't get permission anymore. I won't ask permission anymore. We didn't get a permit for here, and we came anyhow, and we told them no, and I won't get a permit for the gun, and I won't say I can't hand a gun or sell a gun to my friend, because the right to protect my family is a fundamental human right. See, it wasn't about Gavin was a gun rights activist per se. People say, oh, Gavin's a gun nut. I had this teeny tiny, puny little Beretta, okay? That's all. They all had their big Barretts and their 45s, and I just had this little tiny, like, yuppie gun in my pocket. Some of you remember laughing at me about that gun. But that was not, it wasn't about the size of the gun. See, that's the problem. And that's why after that, they said, wow, Gavin, you're a great leader of this movement. And they invited me to their rallies. And for a while, I was a hero. And then they wanted me to be a part of their faction. And this is where the bus started getting a little wobbly again. Because see, I wasn't there to join the Republican Party. I wasn't there to be a member of the conservative pack. I wasn't there to be a member of the redneck group. I was simply there to defend freedom. Because defending freedom, that's what it looks like, is actually refusing to comply with tyranny and defending others and helping them to do the same. And so when I wouldn't hate the immigrants, and when I wouldn't support the police, and when I called them out and I kept connecting the dots about all our freedoms, and when I reminded them that just because they didn't like Black Lives Matter didn't mean that their points were all wrong and they had rights too, and they shouldn't all be in prison, and when I wouldn't play the games, they gradually faded away. And then for a while during the Bundy Ranch, when I did the final refuge call with the FBI surrounding the refuge, and we got that call out over this very channel, for a while I was their hero again, right? But remember one thing, if you're ever someone's hero, is that you'll probably disappoint them. Don't try to be someone's hero. Just try to do something right and good. Because if you stand up equally for all, most groups that supported you yesterday will hate you tomorrow. And that's the sad truth. That's why politicians play to all sides. See, me and my wife and my kids and my family, we stood up for what we believed and we did our best to defend it. And in that rally, the I Will Not Comply rally of 2014, we actually resisted. But Virginia didn't. Virginia shamed patriotism, and I understand their fear. And they can't say, Gavin, you don't understand. They told us this, they told us that. I understand because I was there. I was the one that went to prison if it went bad, if I made it that far, with the snipers that were lining the roofs of the Washington Capitol that day. Some of you in this group were probably there, and you remember all that. But if you don't believe me, you can go look it up. See, Virginia didn't have a gun rights rally. Virginia had a corporate-sponsored compliance rally that said, please, government, let us have our toys so we can show off for our friends. But we will always do what you say. And if at any time you want to take our guns, or if you want to allow us to do this, if it please the king, search us to make sure that in this area. See, if there had been standing up for freedom, all it would have taken, and people say, no, because you want a bloodbath? No, I didn't want a bloodbath, and I don't. See, I was there. I had that worry on my shoulders for real. More than the people in Virginia did. Because they didn't resist, and that's the problem. You have to resist, and this is why gun rights in the USA are gone. The Virginia rally was one of the final death knells before gun confiscation in the USA, because they just tested you, probably in one of the grandest ways for the final time. They just proved that you're not going to resist because you know it's too far gone in your heart. Now, I understand that if you say, I have a family, I can't resist, I can't go there, it's over, that's fine. But at that point, you might as well be getting out like I did. See, I left the country to avoid the concentration camp because I didn't stop doing activism. I didn't stop defending rights, gun rights, and police abuse, standing against that, and speech rights, and all these things. And my point in this is not that I did it perfectly or that I'm so great or inspired. It's that I just tried. I didn't just get up there and wave a flag and a gun and say, look, I'm standing for something, because that's not standing. Compliance isn't standing. Standing for freedom means rebellion against tyranny. And if you're not rebelling against tyranny, you're not standing for freedom. You're not defending freedom. If you're wearing a uniform as a cop or a soldier and you're going and bombing and stealing from everyone else and robbing people on street corners, you're not defending freedom. You're destroying it. And if you're saying you're a Republican or a libertarian, you're left, you're right, and you're complying and obeying and you're supporting your faction's freedom and then saying the people over there should be in prison. If you're from the left and you say Lavoy Finicum and the Bundys deserve to be murdered, Schaefer Cox deserves to be in prison, Jeff Winehouse deserves to be in prison, and then you say your people, they're the ones being abused, but those people aren't, you're a fraud. You don't stand for freedom, you stand for the elitism of your faction. If you're on the right and you say the Black Lives Matter needs to be in prison because they block roads, well, guess what, guys? The Founding Fathers blocked roads. That's one of the ways you protest. They say, oh no, look at them. Look at the left. Look at the left. They're crazy. Our people need to be set free from prison. You're a hypocrite. You're a fraud. If you stand up for the freedom of your family and the enslavement of the one across the street. That's why I didn't stay popular with a lot of people, is because of that right there. And that's okay. It's okay. Jesus said we'd be hated of the world, and we try to do the best. But my point in all of this is not that there's never a way for me or you or anyone to do better. My point in telling you this little history of the I Will Not Comply rally, and what the I Will Not Comply rally really was about, was yes, about disobedience. Yes, about defiance, rattling that cage. That's right. Yeshua's return, rattling that cage. That's what it was about, and we did that. And when that day ended, that crowd dispersed, and there wasn't so much as a piece of litter on the ground. It was a marvelous thing. No one was arrested. Of course, in Virginia, one person was arrested. The one woman who refused to comply Because apparently it's illegal also to cover your face, because obviously the whole Virginia situation was a way to get thousands of people that have guns to be facially identified, to prove that they will do nothing, and then when confiscation day comes, they'll know all the people and what guns they have. Check and mate. But the one woman who wouldn't uncover her face, well, she was arrested, and of course, even though there was 5, 10, 20, 30,000 armed people there, they didn't do anything about the kidnappers stealing the woman away because she wouldn't comply, of course. They let the 100 kidnappers that were there to their 5,000 armed patriots do exactly what they wanted as they groped and searched and demanded a rally for gun rights that was gun-free. Gun rights are over in the US. And while I admire those who do resist, I admire those who film the police, I admire those who stand up, just know that you're going to have to get out eventually if you want to stay out of the camps. See, the only people telling you that it's cowardly to leave Berlin are the cowards who want you to submit to their treason and who are afraid to stand up themselves. Never let your courage in standing be defined by those who only do compliance and demand that you do the same. That's the history of the I Will Not Comply rally from 2014 to what we see now. Because when you let fake gun rights organizations, politicians, and facial recognition cameras be the driving force behind a rally, when you submit, when you comply, when you say, yes, we will let you do this and violate us today so that we can be free tomorrow, you will never be free. Because you've given up not the gift of government in your rights, but the inherent possession of mankind, natural and God-given. You've given it up because you were afraid. Thanks, Gavin. And if you were that afraid, you should have saved them the victory over you and never showed up in the first place. If you can't win a battle, and they could have torn down that pen. They could have marched on there. They could have made a statement that might have lit a spark, but the nation is too busy worshiping the Red King. Because when their party's taking their guns, they have to comply with a whimper and a whine because it's all part of the 40 chess. No? Am I right? Do I make sense? Am I crazy? As they steal our children, kill our families, take people like Kylie Dixon from their mother's home so they can force surgeries on them and then disappear them into the medical system? As they kill us on the streets? As they pass legislation to make our freedom a crime and a felony? Why would a free-thinking person tolerate that? And that's why I tried to stand up to it for years. But here's the problem. When everybody decided to worship party and faction first, thanks, Truth Mercy, when everybody decided to put party and faction first, before freedom, before justice, and before the real Christian value, which is loving your neighbor as yourself, when they did that, I knew finally, after watching for years and watching them not show up when it got real rough, I realized that when I went to prison, they weren't going to do anything. Just like when they had 5,000 armed men at the edge of a fence that 20 men set up to say, you can't protest here unless you allow us to grope you. And those 5,000, 10,000 men, women said, okay, yeah, that's all right. we'll do what you say. We'll hold off our rights for today. When that happens, that's how you know it's over. All right, guys, I'm gonna go. This went longer than I thought, but I wanted to give you the whole story and maybe have a little fun talking about how sad of a nation we've become. There are places that have a spark of freedom. I don't know of anywhere that's completely free, but I know down south here, we have vastly more freedom every day of the week than you do any day of the week up there. So think about that when you're examining your options. But there's other places. Almost everywhere in the world has more freedom than the USA does. The only freedom you have is the freedom to believe the lie, the propaganda, that you're the greatest, the freest, the mightiest, and the best, and that everyone else hates you for your freedom. But I have sad news. They don't. You guys have a good weekend. Spread this message or make your own video and hit that like, subscribe button. Thanks for your support, your prayers, and I have some interesting things, other interesting videos I'm working on right back here on the big boy. Try and get those out to you guys soon. Thank you all. Peace.